Gailestingas mano viešpats, kaip myli mane. Gailestingas mano viešpats, kaip myli mane. Gailestingas mano viešpats, kaip myli mane.
Thank you for coming, first of all. Thank you for coming this afternoon. And sometimes people ask, is it your first time in Lithuania? And then I start explaining that no, I've come before.
Kartais mane žmonės klausia, ar aš pirmą kartą Lietuvoje, ir jie visada pasakoju, kad ne, esu čia buvęs prieš tai.
And the first time I came, in fact, was for one of these renewal days in 2007. It was the first time to Lithuania.
Pirmą kartą į Lietuvą atvykau tokią dieną kaip šią, tai buvo per Atsinaujinimo dienas 2007 metais.
And Antanas, Ruta, and many of the others have been coming to Taize since some time. So the links with living stones go back many years for us.
Antanas ir Ruta dažnai atvykdavo į Taize kartu su gyvaisiais akmenimis, todėl mūsų ryšiai yra jau nuo seno.
And so it's kind of back to my Lithuanian roots to come here, to come to this again. But I was also in Lithuania a couple times since then, because we had a Taize meeting in Dienų in 2009.
Grįžti į tokias Atsinaujinimo dienas man reiškia kaip grįžti prie savo Lietuvos šaknų. Tačiau net ir po to pirmojo karto dar buvau keletą kartų Lietuvoje, pavyzdžiui Vilniuje per jaunimo dienas 2009.
And 2009.
Yeah.
2009. And I have to tell you that for me it's a little bit even more mysterious than that, because my grandfather was born not very far from here in Betigala.
Mano senelis gimė Betigaloje, todėl visas šitas susitikimas, grįžimas į Lietuvą yra truputėlį paslaptingesnis.
And my grandmother was from around Marijampolė.
Ir mano močiutė kilus iš Marijampolės apylinkių.
But I grew up in New York City. So it's very confusing. It's very, very confusing for you, I think. I'm American. My father's parents were from here. And I live in France, and I have a French name.
Aš esu iš
Jonas
Amerikos.
Marija.
Mano tėvai irgi augo Amerikoje, mano seneliai yra iš čia. Ir šiuo metu gyvenu Prancūzijoje, tai galbūt jums šiek tiek klaidu visą šitą situaciją, ir taip pat turiu prancūzišką vardą Jonas Marija.
So for me, it's very special to come here, because it's very, because I grew up, I don't speak. But I grew up hearing my grandparents speak all the time.
Man labai patinka čia grįžti, ir man labai patinka tai, kad aš nemoku šitos kalbos, lietuvių kalbos, bet aš užaugau girdėdamas, kaip mano seneliai kalbėjos lietuviškai.
So Lithuania was a very mysterious place far away. My grandparents came from, and they could never go back, because it was at that time you couldn't travel.
Lietuva man buvo ta paslaptinga vieta, kadangi mano seneliai gyveno Amerikoje ir negalėjo grįžti į Lietuvą, kadangi tais laikais nebuvo galima keliauti atgal.
And now this time I came, euros, paying euros now. So it's incredible to think of how.
Šį kartą atvykau, tai viskas yra, kaip matot, pasikeitę, reikia mokėti jau eurais.
It's not just euros, but in any case, here we are, October 16th, 2016.
Svarbu, kad reikia mokėti eurais, svarbiausia, kad esam čia ir spalio.
October 16th, yeah. Anyway, I'm here also because Taize is preparing a meeting in Riga at the end of this year in Latvia.
Taip pat čia atvykau dėl to, kad Latvijoje Rygoje bus Taize žiemos susitikimas.
And we thought it was a good occasion. Now I'm here for 1 week to invite young Lithuanians to this meeting. It's so close.
Aš čia esu šiai savaitai ir pamaniau, kad tai bus gera proga pakviesti lietuvius atvykti, kadangi Ryga yra labai arti.
But I don't know, over the next hour we'll have a chance to speak about a lot of things. Maybe also I would like, since we're not such a big number, it can be a little bit conversational. Be nice, no? Maybe you'll have some questions or you'd like to.
Ateinančią valandą turėsim pasikalbėti apie įvairius dalykus, bet kadangi mūsų nėra labai daug, tai norėčiau, kad tai būtų daugiau pokalbis. Ir jeigu jūs turėsit klausimų, tai jauskitės laisvai.
Because I think for me now to come to a day like this, to take part in this day like this, and to be here for 1 week is also, it's a chance for me to try to understand a little bit better what is it like now to be living here now at this time, no? As a young person, as an adult, what is it? What's important now?
Manau, atvykti į šias atsinaujinimo dienas yra man galimybė, kad jūs padėtumėt man suprasti, ką reiškia gyventi čia ir dabar, kaip jaunuoliui, paaugliui, suaugusiam žmogui, kas jums yra svarbu.
Because we organize now in Taize. I'll speak a little bit about Taize because I assume not everybody knows about Taize. I'll say maybe a little bit about Taize, what it is, but in Taize we have meetings for young people, and we're not organizers. We're in fact sometimes very disorganized, but we're not organizers first of all.
Šiek tiek papasakosiu apie Taize ir galbūt ne visi ten esate buvę, tai trumpai papasakosiu, ką mes ten veikiam. Ir mes turim susitikimus jaunimui ir reikėtų pabrėžti, kad mes nesam kažkokie organizatoriai dalykų. Mes dažnai būnam labai kaip tik išsibalansavę ir paprasti.
I think first of all, we like that people can come together, that they can meet one another, pray together, and this is the first thing.
Manau, svarbiausia, tai ko mes norim, yra, kad žmonės susiburtų drauge, kad galėtų melstis kartu ir išgyventi tą dvasią.
And then that they can find something that's going to help them for their immediate, for the next weeks, months, maybe their life.
Ir kad jie rastų kažką, kas jiems padėtų ateinančioms savaitėms, mėnesiams arba patiems jų gyvenimams toliau.
So that's why also, I think that's more important why I'm here, to see, to try to catch the temperature here. It's cold now, but it's very sunny also.
Man atrodo, man svarbu pagauti čia temperatūrą, nors ir dabar saulėta ir šalta, bet būtų svarbu suprasti.
I don't know if that's very clear.
Nežinau, ar labai aišku, bet...
But I'd be happy to see a little bit, why did you come, maybe we can just see a little bit, why did you come to this workshop and not the others? Some could say lietuviškai.
Norėčiau paklausti, kodėl atvykot būtent į šį susitikimą, į tą susitikimą?
What are you interested that we can speak about? The title is very general, no? Taize, gailestingumo, and jaunimus.
Gal yra kažkas, kas jūs specifiškai domina, nes jūs pavadinimas yra labai bendras. Taize, gailestingumas, jaunimas, kažkas tokio.
What interested you in coming here?
Kas jūs domina, kad čia atėjot, galbūt kažkas?
Because I don't think I see you have a Taize cross, so maybe you were in Taize.
I got Taize birthday gift from my friend who was in Taize, and this is my dream to go to Taize someday. I'm saving money for next or maybe the summer after to go there.
Yeah.
Tai išversiu tada lietuviškai, kad Karolina sakė, kad nėra buvus Taize, bet norėtų nuvykti ir tauposi pinigus kitai vasarai.
Arba kitai.
Some could say, why did you come now?
Gal kas nors
In Lithuania.
pasidalins, kodėl atvyko lietuviškai?
Why did you come now? Why were you interested?
Just it was very, very close for me, Taize. 18 years ago, I had a very bad situation. My youngest son, he had surgery, and after that, I said that maybe we have to pray or have something special. And we decided to go to Taize. And he was 10 years old, and like you see, I am an adult. And you say that it's for young people, but you know that everyone has place, and it's small groups, it's groups for children and groups for adults, and we were in different group, and it was something very, very special, and really all that time I remember and live with this spirit.
Lietuviškai.
I
Everyone wants to speak English.
Aš taip pat buvau tik pravažiuojant. Kelionę mes buvom Kliūny ir iš Kliūny mes tranza važiavom. Tak autostop from Kliūny to Taize. I was in Taize in this buildings.
Just the relation was like this. When I returned, I said to my husband, it was so wonderful. I can't explain you, just I will show you someday. And when we traveled to France with to Lourdes with Antanas in Anuta, we stayed in Cluny and I showed him Taize.
Some kilometers from
10 kilometers.
10 kilometers. Oh, it isn't. Why else did some of you come? No. You were here at the beginning. Oh, here.
Jūs čia nuo pradžių, tai kodėl jūs atėjot gal?
Okay, I just had to come. It was for young people.
All the other sessions were for parents or married
Okay.
people.
This was the default one for the young people, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's the only one. Okay.
Čia buvo paskirta jaunimui vienintelė tematiškai, tai todėl tai.
Yeah.
As you say, you want to feel temperature here. And as you see, there is no Lithuanians who can speak in Lithuanian. It's pretty funny. Bet aš galiu kalbėti lietuviškai. Ir galiu atsakyti, kodėl aš čia atėjau. Daug įvyžiuosi iš tiesų. Paskutiniam dienom dažnai tenka bendrą klausimą apie emigraciją. Tai šiandien jau per miestą ir galvoje, jas mane ten, kur aš turiu būti iš tiesų šiandien. Jau pravadau ir taip patys nutiko būtent į 4. numerį, kur yra Taize grupė, galvoju, kad šiandien įvyko jaunimas ir...
Can everybody hear?
Visi girdit?
Yeah.
Ir ką aš ten veisiu tarp jaunimo iš tiesų. Bet atėjęs išgirdau pirmiausia, tai kas buvo mano viduje. Emigracija, visi tie ryšiai. Iš tiesiog tragios temos. O iš tiesų galvoju, kad yra problemų bendravime su jaunimu, bet matau, kad vis taip daug. Pajusti tą atmosferą tikrai nebus lengva. Tam neužteks savęs.
Okay, maybe I could just speak a bit about Taize to begin, because I think for many, who has been to Taize? How many have been to Taize?
Pradžiai, kas yra buvę Taize? Iš jūsų?
Okay, so many not.
Nedaug.
And who, let's see, who knows nothing? No, I can say who knows nothing about Taize. So it's new for many of you.
Tai daugam iš jūsų Taize yra naujas dalykas.
So Taize is a little village. It's a little village in the Burgundy region of France.
Taize yra mažas kaimelis Burgundijos teritorijoje Prancūzijoje.
And it's on a little hill.
Ant mažos kalvos.
It's a very old village.
Tai labai senas
Old
kaimelis.
village. The church was built 8 centuries ago.
Bažnyčia buvo pastatyta prieš 8 amžius.
It's stone.
Iš akmenų.
And in fact, it was almost abandoned. It was pretty much abandoned
Ji buvo gan apleista.
at the beginning of the last war in 1940.
Antrojo pasaulinio karo pabaigoje, 40-aisiais metais.
Because in France, many people left the countryside, left the small villages for the big cities.
Prancūzijoje daug žmonių išsikėlė iš kaimų ir mažų regionų į didžiuosius miestus.
And it was in 1940 that the person who started our community first arrived in Taize. His name was Brother Roger.
1940-aisiais pirmas mūsų bendruomenės narys ir įkūrėjas, brolis Rože, atvažiavo būtent į tą kaimelį.
He himself was very young. At the time, he was just 25.
Tuo metu jis buvo labai jaunas, jam buvo tik 25.
And he was Swiss, in fact.
Jis buvo šveicaras.
And in fact, he was the son. His father was a pastor, a Protestant pastor.
Jo tėvas buvo protestantų pastorius.
Calvinist.
Kalvinistas.
Yeah. And he came from a very big family. I think there were nine children. He was the last, the
Iš
youngest.
didelės šeimos, tai kur buvo 9 vaikai ir jis buvo pats jauniausias.
And when the war came, well, it's a long story also, but I'll give you the short version. No? At the beginning of the war, he felt that he couldn't stay just in Switzerland, but that he really had to go somewhere where people were, where the war was really, was making people suffer, you know, because of...
Tai čia yra ilga istorija, bet pasistengsiu ją papasakoti trumpai. Tai tuo metu brolis Rožė jautė, kad negalėjo likti Šveicarijoje ir norėjo važiuoti pas tuos žmonės, kurie tuo metu kentė nuo karo.
And he had this idea in the back of his head, but you know, when you're 25 or when you're 20s, you have lots of ideas, you have lots of knowledge. And he didn't know if he could do it, but to create a kind of a community together where people would live their lives for reconciliation, for unity and reconciliation.
Jis giliai savo kažkur širdį turėjo tą mintį, kad norėtų įkurti bendruomenę, bet žinot, kad 20-mečiai turi daug idėjų, bet jis norėjo įkurti bendruomenę, kurioje žmonės galėtų gyventi kartu ir dirbti vardan susitaikinimo.
And why reconciliation? Why unity? Why that?
Kodėl susitaikinimas ir bendrumas?
Well, in his family, he had a very special grandmother. A very special grandmother.
Jo šeimoje buvo labai ypatinga močiutė.
And she was a Protestant, but she would go sometimes to pray in the Catholic Church.
Ji buvo protestantė, bet karts nuo karto eidavo pasimelsti į katalikų bažnyčią.
So you can imagine, you know, something like that was very, very rare. You know, Protestants on one side, in Switzerland, Catholics on the other.
Jūs turbūt suprantat, kad tai buvo labai retas atvejis, nes Šveicarijoje protestantai ir katalikai buvo labai atskiros bendruomenės.
In Switzerland, you have one valley which is Protestant. No? The next valley, over the other side of the mountains, you have the Catholics. No? Next valley, Protestants. It's a little bit like that, no? Mountains between them. No?
Tai slėnius skirdavo kalnai, tai vienam slėnyje būdavo protestantai, kitam slėnyje katalikai ir taip toliau.
And you could say these mountains are also like mental mountains. Mental mountains. No?
Ir tie kalnai gali būti įvardijami ir kaip mintyse mūsų kalnai ir ribos.
All sorts of things in our minds which are very important for us, where we say, I am this, I am not that. I am Catholic, I'm not Protestant. I'm Protestant, I'm not Catholic. I'm Swiss, I'm not French. I'm, no?
Tai kažkas mūsų galvose, tai yra tam tikros ribos, kai mes įvardijame, kad aš esu katalikas, arba aš esu protestantas, aš esu prancūzas, o ne šveicaras ir atvirkščiai.
And his grandmother, she said, she lived through the First World War, and then the Second World War, you know? And she said, unless Christians can be reconciled, there will be no peace in Europe. She said this to. And Brother Roger at the time was very small. He was a little boy.
Kai brolis Rožė dar buvo labai mažas berniukas, jo močiutė pasakė, kad jie išgyveno abudu pasaulinius karus ir pasakė, kad nebus pasaulyje taikos, jeigu Europoje krikščionys nesusivienys.
Yeah. Unless we can find some way to be reconciled, to overcome our differences, war will be the way things continue.
Jeigu mes nerasime būdo susivienyti ir pažiūrėsime plačiau negu tie mūsų skirtumai, tai tada karas ir toliau tęsis.
So I think it means that as Brother Roger was growing up, was a young man, he felt that faith was important for helping us to overcome difficulties and divisions.
Kai brolis Rožė augo ir buvo jaunuolis, jis suprato, kad tikėjimas padeda peržengti visas tas ribas ir sunkumus.
But what do you do with that? No? He's 25 years old. So the war came and he decided to go to France, and he found a house where we still live now. He found this house when he was 25, and that's where he settled. He's 1940.
Tai ką reikėtų tokiu atveju daryti, kai esi 20-25 metų, tai brolis Rožė atvyko į Prancūziją ir nusipirko vieną namą, kuriame dar mes iki dabar gyvenam.
And he prayed every day.
Jis melsdavos kasdien.
I think he had It was a little farm, but he had a cow, I think.
Buvo maža ferma ir turėjo karvę berods.
Cow. And then there were refugees at the time, no? Because political refugees, Jewish people also who were fleeing.
Taip pat buvo pabėgėlių, politinių pabėgėlių, žydų, kurie norėjo išsikeldinti.
So he had this idea of founding a community, but the beginning, just people coming through. He welcomed people who were having a hard time, in hardship.
Tai jis turėjo mintį įkurti bendruomenę, bet pradžioje jis tiesiog priimdavo žmonės, kurie turėdavo sunkumų.
He was almost captured by the Gestapo. He came back, and then the first young men who were the first brothers, joined him.
Jis buvo
1944, 1945.
Buvo beveik sugautas Gestapo, bet paskui antrą kartą, kai grįžo į bendruomenę, tai prie jo prisijungė keli broliai 1940-aisiais ir toliau.
So I think those are the very beginnings. For us, it's still very important, these beginnings. No? Very humble beginnings, very simple, praying together, welcoming people who are suffering, and trying to seek ways of reconciliation together.
Tai čia yra visa ko pradžia ir mums, kadangi yra svarbu pradžios, tai Taize pradžia buvo priimti tuos, kuriems skaudėjo ir ieškoti susitaikinimo.
Little by little the community grew. Over the years the community grew. Some other men came after the Second Vatican Council. The first Catholic brothers joined the community.
Pamažu bendruomenė augo ir po antrojo Vatikano susirinkimo broliai katalikai pradėjo jungtis į bendruomenę.
In fact, Saint Pope John the 23rd invited Brother Roger and another brother to be at the Vatican Council for the whole time.
Brolis, tai popiežius Jonas 23 pakvietė brolį Roger ir dar porą brolių į Vatikano antrojo susirinkimo svarstymus.
And you can imagine that was very important because the community was just a tiny thing. People didn't really know very much about Taize. And all of a sudden this Pope was very receptive and was interested.
Ir tai buvo labai svarbu, nes tuo metu bendruomenė buvo labai maža ir realiai niekam nežinoma, popiežius juos pakvietė ir buvo labai priemantis ir atviras.
And there was something very beautiful that John the 23rd said to Brother Roger once, which Brother Roger was very touched by.
Brolis Roger kartą išgirdo iš Jono 23 žodžius, kurie jį labai palietė.
So apparently the Pope saw the brothers in the distance, he saw them, they were waiting there, and he said, "Oh, Taize, that little springtime." Springtime.
Matydamas iš toli ateinančius brolius, pasakė, kad jie atrodo lyg pavasaris.
A little springtime. Something, it's just the beginning, no? Maybe it's, I don't know, you could talk a long time. What did he mean by this? No?
Kažkas tik taip pradeda žydėti ir apie tai galima dar labai daug kalbėti.
But he encouraged the brothers very much. That was the important thing.
Bet tai labai paskatino brolius ir tai yra pats svarbiausias dalykas.
So at that time also brothers started to live. We started to live in other parts of the world. We have brothers we have little groups. Brothers, we call them fraternities. Today we have brothers living in Cuba, in Brazil, Kenya, Senegal, Bangladesh, Korea.
Tuo metu broliai pradėjo gyventi ir kitose pasaulio vietose ir mažose bendruomenėse, pavadinimų neversiu, bet mes pasakė.
All these countries.
Yeah,
all these countries.
Visas tos šalys.
To share the life of people there.
Ir dalinos gyvenimą ten kartu su ten esančiais žmonėmis.
The most recent one is in Cuba.
Vienas tokių neseniausiai išvykusių brolių tai Kuba išvyko.
It's a big adventure because Cuba is changing now. But it's not changing also. It's not changing so much.
Tai didžiulis nuotykis, nes Kuba kartu ir labai keičiasi ir nesikeičia tuo pat metu.
So it's very interesting. It's very good to be there.
Labai gera ten būti.
But young people, why young people? Why did young people start coming to Taize? No? Because
Kodėl jauni žmonės pradėjo vykti Taize?
That began a long time ago already. I think in the 60s, during the 1960s, late 50s already. Young people just started coming to Taize and visited.
Tai prasidėjo jau seniai, 50-60 metais jauni žmonės pradėjo vykti Taize.
And they started coming, Why? It's very hard to say.
Jie pradėjo atvykti, bet kodėl, tai yra labai sunku pasakyti.
But I think one reason was that young people at that time, it was mostly from France, from Germany, from around there, many young people, I think, felt as if nobody really was listening to them. And they didn't always feel at home in the church.
Jauni žmonės kartais bažnyčioje nesijausdavo lyg yra namie ir kad ne visada jausdavosi išgirsti, tai dažnai žmonės iš Prancūzijos ir Vokietijos atvykdavo būtent į Taize.
Already then, it was starting to become hard to find young people in the church.
Tuo metu buvo sunku rasti jaunimo bažnyčioje.
And for some reason, they started coming to visit us.
Ir dėl kažkokios priežasties jie pradėjo lankyti mus.
And it wasn't a very easy time, because what to do? We don't feel, we're not youth workers, we're not.
Buvo gan sudėtingas laikas, nes broliai nėra darbo su jaunimu ekspertai.
But Brother Roger felt it was very important to receive people. Like he received people at the very beginning.
Bet brolis Roger jautė, kad labai svarbu yra priimti atvykstančius žmonės.
And so to welcome them. So in the beginning it was very, very simple. There were tents, there was just cold water, there was old army tents.
Tai iš pradžių buvo viskas labai paprasta, buvo šaltas vanduo ir armijos palapinės didžiulės.
And lots of mud.
Ir daug purvo.
Lots of mud, no? Because there were fields, there were just fields around Taize.
Todėl, kad tai aplink Taize yra labai daug laukų, tai buvo daug ir purvo.
If you come to Taize today, it's a little bit better.
Jeigu dabar atvyktumėte į Taize, tai dabar šiek tiek geriau.
There's still mud, the dormitories.
Vis dar yra purvo, bet yra jau miegojimo atkarpa.
So little by little, the brothers continued to receive people, and it grew.
Pamažu broliai ir toliau priėmė jaunus žmonės ir bendruomenę augo.
And then there was 1989. 1991, 1992.
Tai 89, 91, 92.
I still remember very well because I was there already in the community.
Tada jau buvau bendruomenėje.
I had joined in the 80s.
Aš prisijungiau 80-aisiais.
And all of a sudden, it was like an invasion of young people.
Ir staiga prasidėjo jaunų žmonių invazija.
Poland, Czech Republic, and many from Lithuania.
Iš Lenkijos, Čekijos ir be galo daug lietuvių.
It's a long time ago now. But it's very hard. When I think back, I'm still amazed to see so many were coming.
Nors praėjo daug laiko, aš vis dar esu apstulbęs, kiek žmonių tuo metu atvažiuodavo.
Maybe when you were talking now, maybe it was the same time. Yeah, same time. And in fact, the brothers had never been able to come before to Lithuania.
Broliai prieš tai negalėjo atvykti į Lietuvą.
It was almost impossible for us to visit without compromising people.
Buvo praktiškai neįmanoma atvykti be susitarimų konkrečių.
And then many people started coming, and now it's made for a long story of links and friendship between Taize and Lithuania.
Bet tada pradėjo staiga atvykti labai daug žmonių ir nuo tada prasidėjo daugybė ryšių tarp Lietuvos ir Taize.
And now it's not like at the very beginning in the 90s, because I think Taize was very new at the time. People didn't know what is it, and it was easy. There were many groups being prepared going to Taize.
Dabar nėra kaip 90-aisiais, nes žmonės tada nežinojo, kas tai yra, ir todėl buvo labai daug grupių, kurios vyko tuo pat metu.
But now still many. So come some among you have been, Ingrid, Sharon.
Bet vis dar atvyksta daug jaunų žmonių.
And some have been, Agne, you came to Taize 2012, you told me. 2012. And 2008. So we're very happy that this continues, because we still feel today things have changed a lot. Many things, every year things change.
Labai džiaugiuosi, kad tai tęsiasi, nors ir daug dalykų pasikeitė ir kasmet jie keičiasi.
But it seems to us very important to give one another the chance to meet one another, to pray with one another, to make friendships across all the boundaries of language, east, west, north, south. No?
Bet mums labai svarbu, kad mes galim susipažinti, kartu melstis, sukurti naujus ryšius ir peržengti visas tas ribas, kaip kalbos barjerai ir kiti dalykai.
Yeah, very simple, through friendship, through welcoming one another.
Viskas vyksta per draugystę ir atvykstančiųjų priėmimą.
So and also this year we have the meeting in Riga, in Latvia, so it will be from December 28th to January 1st.
Tai nuo gruodžio 28 iki sausio 1 dienos turim susitikimą Rygoje.
So it'll be beautiful. I think some groups are preparing already from Kaune and other parts of Lithuania.
Iš Lietuvos įvairių regionų ir iš Kauno tame tarpe yra grupės, kurios ruošiasi šiam susitikimui.
And all the people in Riga who are preparing a very warm welcome. That's what they tell us. A warm welcome to their neighbors, their southern neighbors.
Rygoje jau ruošiasi žmonės mus priimti, savo kaimynus.
And others also. No.
Žinoma ir kitus.
So I think it will be a very warm welcome.
Tai turėtų būti labai šiltas priėmimas ir susitikimas.
Yeah. Some who have been to Taize before maybe can add something. Maybe there's some questions now.
Kažkas, kas buvo Taize, norėtų kažką pridėti, ar turit klausimų?
I haven't spoken so much about our theme of gailestingumo, but we'll see about that.
Dar nekalbėjau apie mūsų temą gailestingumą, bet pažiūrėsim, kaip su tuo toliau.
But maybe the theme of mercy for us has this color of reconciliation, no?
Gailestingumo tema iš esmės tai susisieja su tuo bandymu susitaikyti ir susivienyti.
Which means trying to overcome the wounds of separate us from one another.
Tai reiškia peržengti žaizdas, kurios mus skiria vienas nuo kito.
It's a big word, healing, no? Healing the wounds. It's a big word, but you know, it's too big.
Gydyti žaizdas tai yra labai dideli žodžiai. Ir stipri žodžiai.
Some of those who've come, they'd like to add something.
Tie, kas buvo Taize, norėtų kažką pridėti?
Some questions, maybe. You can see if there's some questions.
I didn't know about live stones at the time, and what was interesting for me, when I saw a lot of young people and some of them cried. I remember priest Roger, at that time he was alive, and just I can't understand why they are crying. And after blessing, when I didn't do nothing with me, just tears ran from my eyes, and just I understand that maybe it's so much peace inside or something like that. It wasn't. I thought that they have a lot of problems because they're crying. But after blessing, when Raji blessed me, and I feel the same.
Father Roger.
It was just a little strange for me.
Father Roger was he's a person who's very hard to describe, I think, Brother Roger. He was a very strong person, I think, to start something new at 25 years of age, to leave Switzerland where it was safe to go to an unknown little village to start something. I think you need a lot of courage.
Rožė asmenybę labai sunku apibūdinti. Manau, kad jis buvo labai stiprus žmogus, kad būdamas 25 išvyko iš jam saugios vietos Šveicarijos ir išvyko į visišką nežinomybę Prancūzijoje.
But I think also he was someone who was very susceptible, very vulnerable, kind of a vulnerable person, no?
Bet jis kartu buvo ir labai pažeidžiamas žmogus.
I was very moved this morning listening to Archbishop Tomkevičius, speaking about experience of helplessness. It was very, very powerful.
Šį rytą buvau labai sujaudintas, kai kalbėjo vyskupas Tamkevičius apie bejėgiškumą.
Very strange thing, no? When we're... St. Paul says, no? When I'm weak, I'm strong. Yeah?
Tai labai keistas dalykas, kaip sako popiežius, kad kai esu silpnas, esu stiprus.
What did he say this morning? I wrote it down, but I don't have it on. The worst thing would be to be big, to be strong, and to think you know everything. No, I think that's what he said this morning. Something like that.
Užsirašiau vieną mintį šiandien, jis turbūt kažkaip panašiai sakė, kad yra pats blogiausias dalykas būti didžiam, stipriam ir tai žinovas.
I would add in that case also that would mean that we don't need to trust in anybody. No? Not even God, no? At that case.
Ir čia tokiu atveju pridėčiau, kad vadinasi, mums nereikia pasitikėti niekuo, netgi Dievu, jeigu mes jaučiamės didžiulis.
So Brother Raja had that also. It was very. He lived through that whole time, and his personality was such that he liked most people who kind of spoke from the heart. No?
Brolis Ražė visą savo gyvenimą labiausiai mylėjo tos žmonės, kurie kalbėdavo iš savo širdies.
And understood often when people didn't have the words even to say what they.
Ir suprasdavo, kai žmonės neturėdavo žodžių išreikšti, ką nori pasakyti.
So I think it was someone many people felt very close to, even if they didn't know him.
Todėl daug žmonių jautėsi jam artimi, net nepaisant to, kad jo nepažinojo.
Yeah, and at the end, I think he was a very beautiful old man. No, sometimes when you have
Jis buvo labai gražus, senyvo amžiaus žmogus.
Beautiful old face.
Turėjo gražų seną
it moved people very much often to be with him. Yeah.
Ir žmonės būdavo sujaudinti po to, kai su juo pabūdavo.
Maybe there are other, yeah.
Kokia jūsų mėgstamiausia vieta Taize kaimelyje ir kokia veikla mėgstamiausia?
It is a favorite place in a village. Oh, a lot of places in Taize that I like a lot. I like the brothers. We have a little garden on the side of the hill, which is a little bit wild.
Daug vietų Taize, kurios man patinka, bet mes broliai turim mažą sodelį šalia kalvos.
It's just below the church where we are.
Yra už bažnyčios.
It's a very beautiful place. There are lots of, yeah. It's a quiet place. It's a quiet place. Yeah, it's a quiet place. But it's very beautiful. Yeah. But then I like also then sometimes to just pass around, and then you pass on the other side where the young people are, around the place where they're eating. And I like often to go by there also just to watch all the people who are getting their food, and also the place where they wash the dishes. Because Taize, there's a big washing up area, because there are thousands of people in Taize. Also there are thousands of bowls and only soup spoons.
Man patinka praeiti ir pažiūrėti, kaip jauni žmonės valgo, ir yra tokia washing up vieta, tai reiškia, kur žmonės plauna indus, tai ten yra didžiuliai kibirai, rindai, ir yra vien tik šaukštai.
And I don't know why when they're washing up they're always singing something. I don't know. They're always making lots of noise and it's very happy sound. And for some reason people like to wash dishes in Taize. I don't know why.
Kai jie plauna indus, jie visą laiką dainuoja ir kelia labai daug triukšmo, ir jie visą laiką atrodo labai laimingi, ir kažkodėl visi labai mėgsta plauti indus.
So I like to go by there. Makes me feel happy.
Mėgstu ten nueiti, nes jaučiuosi laimingas vis matydamas.
My favorite activity? Oh, I don't know. The day is always full of so many different beautiful things.
O dėl veiklos, mėgstamiausios, tai visa diena yra pilna labai gražių dalykų veiklų.
Yeah. I think the most we eat all together at lunch.
Mes per pietus kartu valgom.
And we have a very big table. The brothers have a very big table. We don't have it's all made of, it's very hard to describe it, but it's made of planks, which you can make the table as long as you want. We've had as many as 200 people on a table, no?
Ir mes broliai turim labai didelį stalą, jis yra sudedamas iš įvairių dalių, tai galima išskleisti kiek norit, tai visi 200 brolių ten sutelpa.
And you can just put sheets over it, no? And then it looks very nice. It looks like a table, but it's not a table. It's just.
Ir jeigu uždengi staltiesę, tai atrodo kaip visiškai paprastas stalas, nors jis yra sudedamas.
So I like this very much. This extendable table. We have an extendable table and benches.
Tai man labai patinka išskleidžiami stalai ir tokie pat suoleliai.
And for me, it's a kind of, who was speaking also, it was saying the wedding banquet. Wasn't the last, someone was speaking about a wedding, no, a wedding
Kažkas
banquet.
kalbėjo
The
apie
kingdom.
vestuves.
Bennett, yeah. For me, it's just to sit down together at a long table like this and to be together it's a kind of a vision of the kingdom. Everybody has a place.
Tai man taip, sėdint prie tokio stalo didžiulio, tai man yra kaip žvilgsnis į dangų, kur visi sėdi prie bendro stalo ir turi savo vietą.
Yeah. I also like to eat, so maybe that's why.
Ir man patinka valgyti, tai gal todėl.
Everybody likes to eat.
Visiems patinka. Gal dar kažkas?
Actually, one of the first memories when I came to Taize, because
We can just pass this around. These are some pictures of Taize. You just pass around.
Čia bus nuotrauka Taize, ir gausit paskui pažiūrėkit į straipsnius.
the first time that I came to Taize, coming back from Test, and I came there alone, and I remember one Lithuanian friend, as I was coming at Sunday evening, he said, "Well, we have no work left for you next week. Only washing the loonies, you know, the toiletus,
That's right. It's
I forgot even the word." And he said, "Well, it is the best job that it is, but I was afraid to do that. But after working in the kitchen, I understood that it's actually it's a very fun and good atmosphere." And he also said that it is the best place on earth to make friends, which I didn't believe, but now I think it's true.
Yeah. That's good. Maybe what you say is it's important about when you serve one another, no? This experience of being a volunteer. Right? No? I think here there are also volunteers for the renewal day, right? They're wearing green t-shirts.
Tai čia šitoj dienoj matėt, kad yra savanorių su žaliom maikutėm, tai truputėlį apie tarnystę.
Is that right? I think no. Here also. Yes. There's a lot of joy in helping one another. No?
Yra labai daug džiaugsmo padėti vienas kitam.
People are always surprised by this it's every day.
Žmonės dažnai dėl to nustemba, bet Taize tai yra kasdienybė.
I will share with you maybe now hand out something, maybe we see if there are some more questions, but something that Brother Roger, he died 10 years ago, and we have a new prior of our community.
Tai brolis Rože mirė prieš 10 metų ir mes turim naują vyresnį brolį.
And Brother Roger started every year to write a kind of an open letter to young people.
Brolis Rože kasmet rašydavo tokius atvirus laiškus, pasiūlymus jauniems žmonėms.
Because he thought it could be really good for people to have a couple of things that they can reflect about when they're in Taize and when they go back home.
Jis manė, kad jauniems žmonėms yra svarbu turėti porą dalykų, apie kuriuos jie galėtų mąstyti būdami Taize ir grįžę namo.
And to try to put what faith is about in words that people can really understand.
Ir bandė sudėti tai, kas yra tikėjimas, į tokius paprastus žodžius, kad žmonės galėtų lengvai tai suprasti.
Because sometimes people speak about faith and it sounds like a foreign language.
Kartais, kai
It's
žmonės...
in our language, they're speaking English or they're speaking Lithuanian, but I don't understand what are they saying. It's like a foreign language to me.
Kai žmonės kalba apie tikėjimą, kartais kalba taip, lyg tai būtų kalbama svetima kalba, nesvarbu, ar tai būtų angliškai ar lietuviškai, bet skamba lyg kažkas, ko tu nesuprastum.
And I think Brother Roger thought a lot about that, and I think we do too in Taize all the time. No? How can we express what's really important about faith in just a couple words for people?
Brolis Rože dažnai apie tai mąstydavo ir mes taip pat ir dabar apie tai kalbam Taize, kad kaip sudėti svarbius dalykus tikėjime į paprastus žodžius.
So even, for example, the word faith, the word faith.
Net pats žodis tikėjimas.
Brother Roger liked to speak a lot about trust.
Brolis Rože mėgdavo tai įvardinti kaip pasitikėjimą.
To have faith in God is first of all to trust, to offer your trust.
Tikėti Dievu visų pirma reikštų pasitikėti juo.
Trust, and then when you try to have trust, you have a trusting heart, no? So you try to trust in yourself, also to have self-confidence.
Kai stengiasi pasitikėti, tai tu turi ir pasitikėjimą savimi ir tavo širdis tampa pasitikinčia.
And little by little, maybe for others, no? For others around us.
Ir pamažu kitais, kurie yra aplink mus.
But so every year he wrote something, and this year, Brother Alois, who's the new prior, he wrote. You can take one.
Kasmet yra parašomi pasiūlymai ir brolis Salėje dabar vyresnysis, tai bendruomenės parašė taip pat pasiūlymus, galite pasiimti.
So it's about the theme of mercy, about the theme of mercy.
Tai yra gailestingumo tema.
Yeah, about the theme of mercy. And if anybody's interested, I have a couple of things, some little information about the meeting in Riga. But maybe there's some others, other questions or other. Oops. My testimony. Okay, so my story. I spoke at the very beginning, but then not so much. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was born in New York. And, I grew up about an hour outside the city. An hour. And I guess my family was, they went to church. And I came, I got to know Taize because Taize there was a little community living in New York City. And they were living in a part of New York called Hell's Kitchen. So you can imagine a little bit what it was like, or maybe not. I don't know. Hell's Kitchen. So it was a neighborhood where there was a lot of violence, a lot of drugs, a lot of. Yeah. And the brothers had been living there for some time, and I was at university, and I heard about them. And I guess I was 20, 21 at the time, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was studying philosophy at the time. Thinking about doing different things and not quite sure what I would do. And I met the brothers, and then I heard that there were meetings for young people in Taize, and I thought, that'd be good. Because I thought when you it was very hard I was at university, but still to talk about things like that with other young people was very difficult. Talk about faith was almost impossible.
Aš turėjau galvoje įvairių idėjų, ką aš norėčiau veikti, ir išgirdęs apie tokius susitikimus pagalvojau, kad norėčiau ten nuvykti, nes kalbėti su bendraamžiais universiteto bendruomenė ypatingai buvo tikrai sunku.
Even if you had friends who went to church, it was almost impossible to speak about things like that. You could speak about lots of different things, but never about that.
Net jei turėjai draugų, kurie į bažnyčią, niekada apie tai nesikalbėdavai.
And I had lots of questions about faith. I wasn't so sure.
Aš turėjau daug klausimų apie tikėjimą, turėjau daug netikrumų.
So, all the meetings in Taize, maybe it's a little bit far to go to France, to go all the way to France, but I thought, if I can meet other young people there, I think it could really help me.
Maniau, kad vykti į Prancūziją yra tikrai labai tolimas kelias, bet pagalvojau, kad susitikimas su tais jaunais žmonėmis man tikrai galėtų padėti.
And so I went, and it made a big impact on me, I think. I'd never seen...
Tai turėjo didžiulės įtakos man asmeniškai.
To put in a few words, that the gospel is a way of living. It's a way of living, first of all.
Ten supratau, kad evangelija yra būdas gyventi.
It's not just stories. It's not just stories.
Tai nėra tik istorijos.
It's not just stories. It takes root in people's lives when they're together like this.
Tai keičia žmonių gyvenimus, kai jie yra drauge.
But then I went back. I didn't think right away of being a brother. I had no idea I would do something like that. I hadn't thought of that.
Kai grįžau, net neįsivaizdavau, kad aš tapsiu broliu ir net neketinau padaryti.
And I went back, finished my studies, and then came back right after studies. I said, oh, I have to continue with what I started in Taize. I had the impression there's something not finished.
Kai baigiau savo studijas, jaučiau, kad turiu grįžti į Taize ir pabaigti tai, ką pradėjau, nes jaučiau, kad liko kažkas, kas buvo neužbaigta.
And so I went back and then I joined the community maybe 3 months later.
Ir bendruomenę įstojau po 3 mėnesių buvimo tenai.
And maybe the most important words for me were when Jesus says, come, follow me, follow me.
Patys svarbiausi Jėzaus žodžiai man buvo sek paskui mane.
And we can do that in many, many ways. Many, many ways, no?
Mes tai galim daryti skirtingais būdais.
Lots of ways. There are as many ways as there are people.
Yra tiek daug skirtingų būdų, kiek yra skirtingų žmonių.
But there I had the impression, yeah, follow me, who was waiting for me.
Bet aš jaučiau, kad jis manęs laukia, sakydamas sek paskui mane.
And that was the beginning.
Tai buvo to pradžia.
Jūs esate gyvenęs kaip nors ir kitose šalyse bendruomenės, kaip sakėt, kad yra daug brolių įsikūrusių kitose šalyse ir visą laiką Prancūzijoje.
Most of the time I've been in France, yeah, but I've lived also I was in India for some time when just a couple of years after joining the community, I was asked to go and help prepare a meeting we were having in India.
Porą metų po to, kai įstojau į bendruomenę, tai išvykau į Indiją, padėti su susitikimu, kurį mes ten ruošėm.
And still remember, it was Brother Roger he asked, because he was looking for some brothers who could go to India, and I spoke English, so it was...
Roger ieškojo brolių, kurie galėtų kalbėti angliškai, ir aišku, pagalvojo apie mane.
And I was still very young at the time, and when he asked me, would you like to go to India, I still remember, I said, oh, it's very far, my God. Why is he asking me to leave?
Atsimenu, buvau labai jaunas ir kai jis pasiūlė, pagalvojau, kodėl jis prašo manęs, aš buvau labai jaunas ir ta kelionė buvo labai tolima.
And it took me, and he looked at me and he said, he saw that I couldn't say yes yet, so he waited a couple of days.
Man atrodo, jis jautė, kad negalėjau iškart sutikti, tai dar palaukė porą dienų.
I'm here to say yes, I finally said. After a couple of days I realized I'm here to say yes and not no. So I said yes, I'll go.
Po poros dienų supratau, kad atvykau šiandien tam, kad sakyčiau ne, sutikau.
And my God, it was so different. It was so different there. It was incredible.
Ir ten buvo visai kitaip viskas.
So many people. That's my impression of India is when you arrive there, there's just so many people all over.
Įspūdis, kurį atsivežiau iš Indijos, tai kad ten buvo be galo daug žmonių ir jie buvo visur aplink.
You have the impression that Europe is tiny. No? Europe is tiny.
Europa yra labai maža.
Even the United States is small.
Net Amerika yra maža.
It's small. It's immense population. Very young, lots of very young people.
Ten be galo daug jaunų žmonių ir be galo daug šiaip žmonių.
And it was a great experience, I think. I was there, but not for so very long. I was there for 4 months, 5 months.
Tai buvo gera patirtis, bet aš ten buvau tik 4-5 mėnesius.
And then over the years I've traveled also in other parts of Asia.
Taip pat keliavau į kitas Azijos dalis, daugiausiai.
also now for meetings, for different meetings.
Ir dabar keliauju į skirtingus susitikimus.
We're preparing a meeting in Hong Kong.
Dabar ruošiame susitikimą Honkonge.
In 2018.
2018.
So I was there in April.
Tai ten buvau balandį.
It was also the first time I'd ever been to China.
Taip pat pirmas kartas, kada buvau Kinijoje.
It's even bigger.
Ji dar didesnė.
It's very. So, but we have many people coming from these parts of the world also who come to Taize. Even for the meeting in Riga, there'll be a group coming from Hong Kong. I think 40 young people coming. But my experience is it's just preparing meetings, so it's a little bit different. It's just to live.
Mano patirtis yra daugiau ruošti susitikimus, tai nėra gyventi bendruomenėse tikrovėje.
Aš esu nustebęs ir džiugintas, kad jūs komunistinėje šalyje rengiat krikščioniškus susirinkimus.
Yeah, we have a brother who visits China every year.
Mes turim brolį, kuris lanko kasmet Kiniją.
And he is Korean himself.
Jis iš Korėjos.
So he can blend in, no?
Todėl gali susilieti.
People don't notice.
Žmonės nepastebi.
If any of us were to go there, we would stick out like a thumb.
Jeigu kažkuris iš mūsų likusių brolių važiuotų, mes labai išsiskirtumėm.
So he can go. But it's not very easy because the government knows everything you do, no?
Tai nėra lengva, nes vyriausybė žino viską, ką kas veikia.
But there are many Christians there. There are many Christians, and they're very, very courageous.
Ten yra labai daug drąsių krikščionių.
And we just had last week we had a group of Christians from China who were in Taize with their bishop.
Praeitą savaitę turėjom grupę iš Kinijos kartu su vyskupu.
And there's some young people who can come and visit. They can be volunteers in Taize. So we have some Chinese young people.
Ir taip pat atvyksta ilgalaikių savanorių Taize, kurie lieka ilgesniam laikui, tai iš Kinijos.
And they are very. China is a very dynamic country.
Kinija labai dinamiška šalis.
Yeah. But very big and very isolated also. So they don't know about the rest of the world.
Jie taip pat labai didžiulė ir izoliuota šalis, todėl kartais jie nežino apie likusią pasaulio dalį.
So they're very happy to come to these meetings and to meet others.
Todėl jie labai džiaugiasi galėdami atvykti tuos susitikimus ir susipažinti su kitais žmonėmis.
One question. I'm sorry. We are talking about Taize community. It means Catholics or
Protestants,
yeah, or maybe other religions.
So, no, it did.
Tai klausimas yra apie Taize brolius, ar jie yra katalikai, protestantai ar kažkokie.
So among the brothers there are only Catholics. Myself, I'm from Catholic family, and then the brothers who are from Protestant churches originally.
Dauguma brolių yra katalikai ir jis pats.
Lutherans, Calvinists, Baptists also.
Dalis tai protestantų, tai kalvinistų, baptistų.
And what we try to do is to reconcile in ourselves, to our faith, and to receive the best of what comes from the others. Christians.
Stengiam susivienyti vienas su kitu ir gauti geriausią iš to, ką galim, tai iš savo skirtingų truputėlį žvilgsnių.
So they're not Muslims or Buddhists, no.
Yra tik krikščionys, kongregacijos įvairios.
But there are some that come who visit, sometimes in Taize, some.
Bet yra aplankančių musulmonų ar kitų religijų žmonių.
Jūs esate pirma bendruomenė, kuri turi protestantų vienuolių.
Yeah, it's not common. Yeah.
Protestantų vienuoliai nėra dažnas reiškinys.
At the beginning, what Brother Roger started was very hard for Protestants to understand.
Pradžioje, kai brolis Roger kūrė bendruomenę, protestantams buvo labai sunku tą suvokti.
It was easier for Catholics to understand than for Protestants.
Tai buvo lengviau suprasti katalikams.
And there is now Brother Robert.
Brother Robert.
Robert. He talked in Lithuania.
Yeah, no, he's no longer with us anymore. Yeah,
He's no longer with us?
No. Yeah. I spoke with him. That's true. It's almost 4 o'clock, no? So you can sing a song in Lithuanian. Taize song.
Pagiedok Taize giesmę lietuviškai.
Giedokit visos tautos. Some of you know this.
Tai giedokit visos tautos, giedokit viešpatį. Visi žodžiai.
So it's very easy, and just repeats.
Labai lengva ir kartojas, tai greit pagausim.
So but I didn't explain the thing that I handed out to you. It's inside there are the suggestions, proposals.
Nepaaiškinau, ką jums išdalinau, tai viduje yra pasiūlymai.
Around the theme of mercy.
Kas liečia gailestingumo temą.
Because we think it was very important that there was this year of mercy.
Mes manom, kad labai svarbu, jog šie metai buvo gailestingumo.
Yesterday I was on a bus went through lots of Lithuania yesterday on a bus on a tour to different churches and cathedrals where there are gates of mercy.
Vakar keliavom po Lietuvą, kur yra gailestingumo vartai, tai po įvairius Lietuvos miestus.
And there were lots of very beautiful moments. First of all, it was a very beautiful day. It was a very sunny day, and then when the sun went down, the moon came up. This big moon. It was so beautiful.
Vakar buvo labai graži diena, nes buvo labai saulėta ir vakar atėjus iškilo labai didžiulis mėnulis.
So it was the sun and then the moon over the Lithuanian landscape. It was very, very beautiful.
Tai visas Lietuvos kraštovaizdis tarp saulės ir mėnulio buvo.
And we started in Vilnius Cathedral, and then Panevėžys, Šiauliai, Telšiai, and then back to Kaune. We arrived at midnight. No? And in every place there was someone who welcomed us, and it was really very beautiful. Yes, everybody got stamps. Yeah, everybody got stamps. But there was one very interesting moment for me. And we were in the church in Panevėžys, in the cathedral, and there was a young priest who was speaking to people.
Buvom Panevėžio katedroje ir ten jaunas kunigas kalbėjosi su jaunimu.
He was very dynamic and very friendly, laughing a lot, and he was a very, very joyful priest.
Jis buvo labai dinamiškas, džiaugsmingas ir labai entuziastingai viską pasakojo.
It was very nice to see this.
Labai buvo smagu matyti.
And at one point he started to speak about a passage in the Gospels, a very difficult passage, no? That sometimes people have asked me about too, no? You know, there's this thing about the sin against the Holy Spirit. But if you sin against the Holy Spirit, this will not be forgiven you. You know this?
Jis kalbėjo apie ištrauką Evangelijoje, kur kalbama, kad jei nusidėsi šventąjį dvasią, tai jums nebus atleista.
And sometimes people are very disturbed about this, no? Because they think, oh my goodness, what could we do? Maybe there's something that God doesn't forgive us.
Žmonės dažniausiai turi labai daug klausimų, kad galbūt man Dievas neatleidžia už kažkurios dalykus.
And I think a lot of people think that they did it, no? There must be something. And if I know what it is, maybe I will do it, or I don't know. No? There's a kind of a secret fear people have, no? And this priest said a very beautiful thing. He said, well, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, no? Agne, you remember, no? He said something, no, you can only, against the Holy Spirit, is not to believe in His mercy. It's not to believe in God's forgiveness. Because if you don't believe in it, how can He forgive you?
Tai vienintelis dalykas, kurio negali atleisti, kad netikėti jo gailestingumo, nes tu negali priimti to gailestingumo, jeigu jo netiki.
There's not something we do that can make God love us less. Nothing.
Nėra nieko, ką mes padarytumėm, dėl ko Dievas mus mylėtų mažiau.
Nothing. God's love is But if we don't believe in this mercy, how can it touch us? How can it change our hearts?
Bet jei netikim jo gailestingumu, tai kaip jis gali mus pasiekti ir paliesti mūsų širdis?
Like when we're loved very much, but we don't let the person love us. You know?
Tas pats, kaip mes esam labai mylimi, bet mes neleidžiam kitam žmogui savęs mylėti.
And everybody was there, and everybody was listening very much, I think, at that point. Or it was my imagination, maybe, no? Kind of no? And so people were listening, really. And they wanted, I think we need to hear this about that God is really mercy, no? That God really is love.
Tai mes visi ten labai dėmiai klausėmės ir manau labai svarbu kiekvienam išgirsti, kad Dievas yra gailestingumas ir Dievas yra meilė.
It's not just something interesting.
Tai nėra kažkas įdomus.
About God. But there were other nice moments last night also. Yesterday also. But that was a very beautiful. So this you can take with you. It's about mercy. Inside there's a copy. Can I just borrow? Inside you'll see there's a copy of something that we had painted in Taize this last year. It's an icon of mercy.
Viduje rasit paveikslėlį. Yra ikona, kurią nutapėm Taize, gailestingumo ikona.
And it's rather unique because it tells the story about the Good Samaritan.
Jau unikali, nes pasakoja gailestingo samariečio istoriją.
So you can see, no, it's kind of the top, the man gets beaten.
Ten viršuje žmogus yra sumušamas.
Then the Levite and the priest go walking by.
Tada kaip praeina kunigas.
The Samaritan comes.
Kaip ateina samarietis.
And then at the top he puts him on his horse, he takes him to the inn.
Kaip jie užkelia ant žirgo ir nuveda į.
And then they finish eating together. I think they eat together.
Ir viskas baigėsi tuo, kad jie kartu valgo.
So we can finish maybe by singing.
Tai užbaigsim tada giedojimo.
Giedokit visus tautos.
Giedokit visos tautos, giedokit viešpačiui, 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 giedokit visos tautos, giedokit viešpačiui.